Wait, do they need a license?
I will, yeah, today because, Linda's gonna present from there. Oh, so just.
Oh,
I mean, if everybody's here.
you're on.
One, two, three. Oh, yeah, you do. We can get rid of one of those chairs.
Oh, we can?
Yeah.
Does he always send some kind of hanging out there? He never gets a table.
Who doesn't get a table?
Jim, Commissioner Curran.
Oh, you're pushed out.
Yeah, or sometimes I end up like this.
I know you
Get this
do.
little space.
I love it.
Who's not showing up on our table?
No, you only have five on
You
that
only
side.
have- oh.
Five.
Oh, we just had an extra chair?
We did, because when I have the department head meeting, I make them sit at the
Oh.
table.
We have a roll call, we have minutes and all kinds of things to get to. So Madam Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Bell, Curran,
Here.
Freeling, Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman, Ott,
Here.
Pittsford, Tyler,
Here.
Volrath,
Here.
Werfel,
Here.
Yarborough, Elliott,
Here,
you have 9 present.
thank you. Minutes from the 22nd of May.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Moved by Tyler, seconded by Werfel. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Requisition review.
Good morning. Does anybody have any questions about the requisitions?
I
Ma'am,
just have a quick question for Brian on the J-Works. Does that include dollars, Brian, to get this program fixed lane?
So it does. I talked with Chris Swihart at the end of last week as well as at the beginning of this week. So it appears that a final patch has been installed. They're waiting for the Michigan State Police to accept that essentially the communication tool is working. We believe that we're very close to being able to do mass processing of lien through that patch. So I'm very hopeful that in the coming days, you'll have a report from Mr. Swihart that it has been accepted by MSP and that we have free flowing communication.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
along that line, do we know how many months behind we currently are in terms of lien postings?
So the court has been doing manual updates, so I can't say with a complete degree of accuracy, but since the go live, which would have been in the spring of last year, there has not been the ability to do the daily mass processing of liens. So it is months and months behind, sir.
Okay. Any other questions referencing requisitions? Okay, we'll go to scheduled discussion. I see Linda Eli is here. Hi, Linda. Imagine you have something to say about senior center audits.
Yeah, just click that. There you
All
go.
right, great. Can you hear me? Wonderful. All right. Thank you for inviting me here to have a discussion about the senior center audits and for engaging our CPA firm to perform those. Also want to welcome the president of the board from the Central County Senior Centers here in the audience today also. I'll give a little narrative before we go over the summary. Part of an audit, the auditor's responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements. The remaining part of the report is management's responsibility. Why do we have an audit? What's the purpose of an audit? Well, the purpose of an audit is to increase the public confidence in the financial statements. With public funding, there's a higher level of accountability. The IRS asked a question on the nonprofit tax form 990, whether you've had an audit done. The Michigan solicitation license wants a copy of the audit report. Many grants want copies of your audit report. And there's also financial oversight responsibilities, as you are aware of, which is why you guys are requesting that there's an audit done. When we started out this process together several years ago, the county stated several goals. And so I'm going to just recap on those goals. You wanted grant oversight utilizing one CPA firm. You wanted to standardize the chart of accounts for quick and accurate comparisons. The same auditor for consistency and comparability. You wanted the same fiscal year end because when we began this process, 2 of the centers were on different fiscal year ends, which made comparability very difficult. With the standard chart of accounts, all the centers have now implemented the standardized chart of accounts, which serves as the base for the development of their accounting system. It also provides easy and quick access for comparability of information when you ask for that. And also when you're reviewing the financial reports, you know you're comparing the same types of information. You also had an emphasis on internal controls, and you listed 28 different items, specific items, We started with those items and turned it into a checklist and gave those to each of the centers annually for them to complete and respond to. And we include that as part of our audit process. In addition to that, the centers have adopted numerous new and updated accounting policies, and we continue to look at those every year and circle back and update and revise those. It's nice to see several of the centers are now utilizing that as they have new board members. Now they have standardized policies and procedures that they can provide to their new board members to give them that information from day one when they're beginning. And they're very proud of the financial system that they've developed. Internal controls or controls are those actions taken to ensure that the accounting is correct and that fraud is not occurring. As the centers increase oversight, strengthen internal controls, errors are reduced and opportunities for fraud are reduced. Internal controls are an organization's fraud prevention program. Each year we discuss how can we strengthen this system. So as you see the comments that are on the screen above you and your handouts, just know that every year we're circling back and say, how can we make this organization stronger? The financial statement audit is a collaborative process. We've provided clear communication, technology, and other tools. We give them a fraud risk assessment tool, segregation of duties worksheet. We discuss and review the internal controls every year. We give them sample policies to start with if they don't have one. We also provide a digital and secure portal file, which is a technology tool for sending, receiving, and sharing business files securely online, so that all audit committee members can view the documents that we are discussing in our emails. They have access to see those documents as well. There have been consistent and clear expectations. We start with an engagement letter with each center, set timelines and responsibilities. All the centers provide their accounting information by November 1st, and all centers have met this deadline. The audit report was presented, explained in detail, and accepted by each respective center board at their board meeting. And after that, a digital copy is provided to the county, so they are also aware of the progress. Multi-year agreement, we work with this, so we have a 3-year contract, which is now beginning again. Thank you for that. The 3-year contract provides the centers with this contact information throughout the year, so there's not that lapse of who do they contact if they have questions. So they contact us with questions and changes as they occur, and it's really beneficial that we've developed a lot of relationships between the center directors, their accountants, and their board members. Together, a lot has been accomplished. We've had steady and continued progress. By the county's measurement, we've had a lower overall average of audit comments for material weaknesses and an increase in policies and procedures as a result. We've had increased communication. And again, I don't think I can explain this enough, but it's very nice now that I'm being contacted on a regular basis or frequently at least, by the bookkeepers, the directors, board members. Now they're circling back. They feel comfortable. They attend the meetings when I'm there. They ask questions. It's really become a much more collaborative process as a result of this. The centers have also engaged professional bookkeepers since we began this process. We began this process with 3 centers using a bookkeeping firm: North Berrien, Central County, and River Valley. Currently, 6 of the 7 use an outside bookkeeping firm, with the addition of Buchanan, Niles, and Benton Harbor. St. Joe is now the only center that uses an employee, their executive director, as their bookkeeper. The thing that I like about an outside bookkeeper is they've been professionally trained to understand what different types of accounts mean and how to utilize that. It also provides an independent oversight of the financial reports, which is very important in small organizations to get more people involved. And it's very hard for organizations to get a volunteer on the board who has financial experience. Now I'll turn to the summary that you all have on your handout and that's on the screen above. All of the centers received a clean audit opinion, which is often referred to as unqualified or unmodified. And in order to get a clean opinion, it has to follow nonprofit accounting standard rules. It has to be in certain format and certain terminology. As you review the reports, they're very different than public reports or even governmental reports. All of the centers have had audit journal entries. Mostly the purpose of this is the centers maintain their records on a cash basis, which means cash in, cash out. But in order to have a clean audit opinion, it has to be on the full accrual basis, which means you recognize and record expenses that have been incurred but not yet paid. You record depreciation and other non-cash expenses and make other corrections also to be on the full accrual method. So this is something that all the centers receive and have always received. It is very common. I would say it would be uncommon not to have any audit journal entries because organizations of this size don't have the financial expertise to present and prepare a report at this level. All the centers' corporate filing is current with the state of Michigan. Their federal tax form 990 has been completed, filed, and accepted by the IRS. They've all filed their Michigan solicitation license. That's filed by our office, and we make sure that they have received that. They've all implemented the county's new chart of accounts and continue to use that. And then I've added a new one because I think it's important, the audit document submission to the portal for group oversight. So a lot of the centers saw this on the report and they're like, we want that smiley on there. So it's been a good motivator to encourage them to share their information with the other board members that are on the audit oversight committee. And it also is a source of reference for them. Is they're going through this on an annual basis. They may not, it's certainly terminology they don't use on a regular basis. So if they want to know what was that she asked for, and then it's like, look in last year's file. It's easy access for them as well. The next section of this is things that have come to our attention that we have asked the boards of the centers to have an action plan to address. So the NA items are those that did not have to respond to the county on an action plan. But 4 centers we've asked to have a written response and action plan for those. The first item, which is high on my list, is to have financial reports at the board meetings. I appreciate those commissioners that attend the board meetings. It's important to have a financial report at the meeting. It's much more difficult to have financial oversight if there's not a financial report. So that's your first clue that there's probably may not be adequate financial oversight if there's no report at the meeting. So that's why it's important as you attend the meetings, if you don't see a financial report, contact me. And as you're attending other financial meetings, if you don't see a financial report on the agenda and it's not discussed, it's very hard to have that financial oversight at the board level. And that's an integral part of every organization in Berrien County, in my opinion. At 2 of the centers, I gave them specific ways to increase the oversight over payroll. Also, 2 of the centers to separate the bookkeeping and authorize signing individuals. We'd like to separate as much areas as we can for increased oversight. At another center, we suggested that they not have checks made payable to cash, but to actually payable to those individuals who are cashing those checks. And at one center, there were postings outside of the current year, and we discussed that and gave them ways to change that and review their financial reports so that they can be alerted if there are transactions reported outside the current year. And then at another center, we discussed what would be common personnel file contents and to have those things organized and readily available. Down the next section is one of the items on the county's 28 internal control checklist was that the bylaws would state the purchasing policies. And I've listed which centers have actually incorporated certain policies within their bylaws and which have separate policies. It's very easy to update and refresh a policy as things change. Our environment, our financial environment has changed over the years, and as those needs change, it's much easier to change policy in my experience than a bylaw. Those are my comments there. And just kind of a history of those 28 items, how the center implemented those and continue to implement those. As I explained, they've also expanded on that. Well, thank you. I started. Is there any questions or comments? Not that you couldn't hear me.
We could hear you on this side of the room.
Right.
So Linda, with the
You're free to go from-
990s, is there anything of interest that you noted as you reviewed those, helped prepare them?
Our firm prepares the 990s.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so anything interesting from your perspective as an auditor?
Nothing comes to my attention to report.
Thank you.
No, thanks. That is a public document, by the way.
I just want to thank you real quick for all your work on this. It's great that a smiley face is motivating. Who would have thought? And thank you for your help with the updating, helping us update what and that'll go through next in terms of appropriations. And we appreciate all your input on that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
John,
Just real quickly, the amount of fine tuning that you have done goes well beyond what I'm used to seeing from auditing firms. So I can't thank you enough for that amount of fine tuning. It's been great.
Thank you.
The question that I would have is that the makeup of the boards, I'm not familiar with the makeup of the boards. I can only assume that for these different centers that turnover is, I don't know if it's high, if it's low, but is there anything that we can do for onboarding for new board members that come on there to help them through the process? Obviously, having a third-party bookkeeper and explaining to them the need for that is paramount. I get that. Is there anything that we can do to help onboard? You're smiling. So is there anything we can do to help onboard new board members?
Yes, as I stated, it's very difficult for organizations to find someone that has financial background that is willing to donate their time to be on a board. So if you know someone within your district who would be a good board member, I'm sure that the centers in your area would appreciate, hey, if you need a new board member, because there is turnover, there's a lot of consistency, but certainly terms expire and board members wear out. It's a lot of volunteer time. So I'm sure the centers in your area may, if you have a resource, I'm sure they would welcome that information.
anyone else? Ma'am.
I am so thankful that you're here. And this is what I think about when we first started interviewing and asking for, looking at an outside company, is that there are 7 centers and they were doing 9 different things. They didn't want to listen or all kinds of things. Very few welcomed you.
Yes.
And I think about a policy. When you make a policy, it's because something is happening that you need to straighten out, and it's overall. So to bring them together and they're all almost dancing to the same tune, it's just marvelous. Just those basic things. And I know you and your kindness and all, because many people, they didn't want help. They wanted to be scattered like that. How long have you now been doing our audit?
I was thinking about that. has it been 9 years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
That's cute. That's beautiful. Thank you. That's why I say thank you.
Thank you.
That's a lot of money. Whole lot of money.
Oh, a lot of grant money, yes.
Yeah. This is one other question I wanted to ask. Financially, none of them are equal. And so when you have like a St. Joe Lincoln Township Senior Center, they get a lot of bequests, they get birthday gifts, all kinds of things, property walks. Do you charge them different when you have more work to do at their place? Not that place, but at any of the centers that has more financial activity, you charge by your work, amount of work?
Thank you. That's a good question. All the centers pay an additional fee. We maintain their depreciation schedule because again, that's a challenge that they don't have the capacity to do. So we charge for that service. We charge for the adjusting journal entries because that also is based on the complexity and the difficulty or what needs to be straightened out in their records. And again, of the difficulties, the more grants they have or more restricted funds, there is more work to be done. So they do pay for an additional service based on what is above and beyond just a standard audit process.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes,
St. Joe Senior Center, did I understand that their executive director is also serving as their bookkeeper?
that's correct.
It strikes me as a basic problem.
They have two retired accountants on their board who are actively involved and oversee their financial reports and processes. So.
I'm not in any way casting aspersions, but that hat, those two hats on one head, even with two retired accountants on their board, I'm guessing they come to board meetings, but
They are actively involved in, I would say, almost the day-to-day operations.
they are.
Yes.
Do you feel, I shouldn't say feel, do you have a recommendation as to whether the executive director should continue as the bookkeeper?
Certainly, there is a increased level of independence and oversight if there's an outside professional bookkeeping service. And like one of the comments that we had this year was there was postings outside the current year. That's something that a professional bookkeeper uses software that prevents that or doesn't override the system because they're more aware of the accounting rules. So St. Joe definitely does have different challenges because of having a.
Has there been any
Self-trained.
response or any comment? I'm operating under the assumption you've addressed this with them and they have said no. Why?
I've not ever recommended that they change,
Okay,
but it has been a discussion and whoever the treasurer is, which has been a retired accountant, has been an integral part of the audit process.
okay, because I mean, we are fiduciaries
Yes,
for this money. The Board of Commissioners is in the nature of a board of trustees for these millage dollars, which is why we've implemented many things over the years. A former board member who passed Sunday actually set up all the nonprofit, did all the incorporating for the senior centers at no charge when he was on the Board of Commissioners, just to make sure
mhm.
that they had those legal details tended to. Finance Committee has direct oversight, as you know, for the senior centers. And if it's something that you recommend that we address with the St. Joe Center, we can do that. What do you think, Linda?
I think it's,
How long? Has this been forever or has this just been recent, 2 years? Or?
this has been as long as I've been the auditor there. And
So the situation hasn't changed and it's
The
just.
same
way it's been
individual has been the
going.
bookkeeper prior to our being, I think the first year that we audited them, their executive director was a different person. So now the current executive director is having dual roles. Certainly something we could discuss.
Is there a payment being made to the executive director for serving as the bookkeeper?
Not separate from the executive director position, from my understanding.
Anyone, any thoughts?
I think it's fine.
Okay,
I didn't hear you.
I think it's fine for now.
ma'am.
I would
My,
say-
my, hope- oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I'm
Please,
sorry.
you go
When we
ahead.
began this process, it was much more common to have the executive director as the bookkeeper. And it is common in nonprofits of a smaller size, yes. Go ahead,
Okay.
Mimi.
My hope, our hope for having one book, one accounting firm was to bring all people to a standard. And I would like to see that there is the standard of that not happening. It needs to be loose. The amount, and I get mixed up on how much, but I don't know if it's 300 and something thousand they get a year or 700 and something thousand. That's a lot of money in addition to the, outside things that come to all the centers.
Right.
I'd like to see the standard on all of them, of that level of the finances.
Right, right. As I stated, it does provide another financial expert, providing that independent oversight. Mhm.
Okay, well, finance can do as deemed appropriate and is in communication with you, I know. Linda, every year it's a pleasure to have you here and a great deal of appreciation for what you do.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything for Linda? Sir?
With St. Joe's, there ever been any discrepancy in their books?
No,
No,
I've
it's
never
always
found
been-
anything. Initially, when we first started this process, we found out that the land had not been recorded. You may recall that conversation years ago, that they had purchased the old school building with a lease buyback, and so the value of the lease buyback was not included in that purchase document. So we did a revision at that time, and we discussed it at the audit presentation at that time, if you were on the board then.
Thanks again. Annette, you want to talk with us about the terms of appropriation for the senior centers?
Is there anybody here, director here? In here?
And we have Buchanan here also. I would like to thank, we have a couple of senior center directors here as well. One who's made the arduous trip all the way from Buchanan. Yes.
Yep, so you approve the amount that's gonna be provided to the senior centers via the equalization and the millage, and then that's distributed to them in 3 payments over a period of time. Usually by July-ish, we're good. Sorry, trying to control my volume and do the screen at the same time. Come on down. All right, so, sorry. Yeah, it just needs right there. So then you do that, then by October 1, which is the beginning of their fiscal year, we get attested in writing that the seniors, signed by the center director and the president, that says that they've approved all of the terms of appropriation and they've done what they needed to do. Within 30 days of their election, they're providing that information to us as to who's on their boards. And And so John, to answer your question, from the time that we started this, I mean, if we wanted to look at what the turnover was for the boards, we could do that. By December 3rd, they provide a report that summarizes the fulfillment of the plan and gives us a gross number of participants as well as unique individuals served. I can tell you that we're working on that part of it. Through a review of this with PHSC, we've discovered that we may need to work with them a little bit more to get them to show us that number. So I'm in the process of doing that. By April 1, they get their audit. They have to have an unmodified audit, and all of their accounting adjustments that are identified would need to be completed. By June 1, they submit a corrective action plan, which Linda talked about. I get those, they're provided then to Linda. And then by July 31, we get their plan of what they're going to do the next year. And then we have various non-data related terms of appropriation. I don't know why it won't work. No video. Sorry. Eric's up there.
Yep.
Don't grab Eric.
You got it.
Okay, so the document that you have in front of you is, oh, there it goes. Perfect. And- yeah. So we've been chatting at PHSC, and it's time to do the terms of appropriation resolution again. That's done as a full board, and that's for the audience. Okay. So you'll see that first, the whereas there that's in red. This is a question we get a lot, is to how the money is distributed, and that was established via that resolution there that says that they're all getting an equal amount. Yeah, 1/7 now. We found a resolution that wasn't identified in that whereas there that was done in 2012. We've done that. And then we are identifying here that we are now going to have some additions to the terms of appropriation. So the items in red are those additions that have been discussed with PHSC. It would be that the board of directors are already holding their members in public. They're already completing minutes. So we'd be asking for minutes of the board of directors meetings to be provided to county administration. If their bylaws are revised or updated, we have the original ones, but those need to be provided and would be helpful in what we're doing here. So we would ask for, if they're revised or updated, to provide those. Same thing with the certificates of insurance. Some of these guys are giving them to me every single year. Some weren't. So adding that updated certificates of insurance to be provided to us. And when we talked about the election for the board, their board of directors, just adding the part that was actually already in there in 17 was that they provide an updated list of the board members and their length of term. And then asking for, so I get this from some senior centers, I don't get it from all of them, but the number of voters that are voting actually at the elections, which I believe they have those numbers, but we hadn't asked those from all of them. I just changed institute to maintain, because at this point they're all doing the fiscal year of October 1 to September 30, which was set back in 2015. I added that typically Linda sends a communication to them in the engagement letter, and that's typically around November 1st. The number 12 there, where it's just bold, I just wanted to identify that we have asked for that for quite a while, to get the gross number of participants as well as the unique individuals served. So that's already in there, and I'll be working with them, like I said, to get that information. Number 18, I've heard this from a couple of directors. They actually provide a monthly or a yearly report to their board. And they said, oh, that's in my report. It's in my report. And so we're not getting those on a regular basis. I get them from some, I don't get them from all. This would just make that consistent. that if they provide a monthly or yearly report to their center's board of directors, that they would also copy me on that or send that to me via email. Most of them are, that's how they do their communications with me anyway. And then I get some of the newsletters, but not all of them. And so that's the same thing there as asking for the newsletters. Number 19, and this is following conversations with PHSC. While a center may charge for fees for certain programs or activities to offset their cost, senior centers may not charge county residents membership fees. And so that is new. And then I just changed the date here for when the millage was approved, which takes us from 24 to 28. And then the amount you'll see there for 20, so that would be what was collected in 24 and distributed in 25 is the 433,978. And that would be the revision.
Questions, Pete for PHS, or John, go ahead.
I see that number 19 is underlined. All right, so you guys must have had good discussion on that topic. The question I would have, is there anything, and maybe this is for corporate counsel, is there anything that can be cloaked as a membership fee, but not be a membership fee that would provide the same thing here? Is number 19, will it cover everything? Is there anything that can be cloaked as it?
Well, we still allow for the opportunity for particular programs and services to have a charge. So the intent was to just explicitly disallow a charge for merely being a member of the center. So if there are, if there are activities that where the centers want to charge an additional cost to take part in that activity, they can still do that under these terms.
My only concern is that I understand that totally. Somebody's gonna go on a bus trip or gonna be part of a individual thing. I get that, but for walking through the doors, there's something that can be cloaked to not be a membership fee, but to serve as. And so I get concerned about that. And so I just want number 19 to be used as it's intended. That's, I guess, obviously you intended it to be used in that way. And so I just wanted to make sure that it's followed from that standpoint, so.
Anyone else? Sir.
So they can't charge residents. So how would that work for that? Like, for example, the senior center in River Valley, they have 50 members. The summer gets here, now they have 100 members because the temporary residents move in and are attending events there. Can there be charges placed on them as not being full-time residents of the county?
Are they taxpayers?
Well, I would imagine they're part-time.
Then they're paying the tax, so they are paying.
Doesn't matter that they're here full-time
Yeah, if
residents,
they're
because it comes
paying
off their
Yeah,
millage.
they're paying the millage,
It's
so
a
that's
millage.
why
Gotcha.
we said.
Ma'am.
I go to senior centers, I've gone on trips. And I don't know if they check you and you don't know it, or you're a resident, well, you sign all that, you put all that on the application, but just if I went today to any senior center, they welcome me. I just go in and eat. Well, they want you to let them know so they'll have enough meals. But I've not ever heard anyone say they were rejected because they know they live in, but they do know that there are 7 centers and they can go to any one of them. It doesn't matter where you live.
My understanding is the county residency is the threshold determination.
your
If you're a
address.
resident of the county, you can go to any of them. I think our frequent visitor and erstwhile critic, Adolph,
He goes,
goes to several.
he
And
lets us know. that
he's like a
what's
goodwill ambassador for the senior
And I've
centers.
gone on trips.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Hager is representing.
Oh, yeah. But,
Chicago a lot.
but if you're not a county resident, is there anything corporate counsel that would preclude having a visitor's fee charged? Like, by analogy, not a perfect one, but if I go to Warren Dunes and I'm a resident of Michigan, my day pass, might be $3, probably more now. But if I'm from Illinois, it could be 10 or 15.
Silver Beach does that.
Sure, yeah.
Yep.
Would there be anything to preclude charging a fee for someone who is over here for the summer, but doesn't actually live in the county and pay county taxes?
Not in my estimation. I think the intent of the provision was to prevent a universal membership fee, or as, Commissioner Hinkleman mentioned, a door charge that applies to everyone who walks in the door. But that was, as it's written now, that was that's as far as it was meant to go. So I don't think there is anything that would preclude that kind of a
That's where
charge
to keep people
Okay,
out.
one
as
other,
it's written now.
And Lincoln
one other
is-
question for the committee. Item 2, and then tying that into item 18. Is there any thought about having the centers provide financial reports at their regular meetings? That would be, because Linda touched on that being beneficial, but I didn't see anything specific to that in this resolution. We could add it easily enough to 18. I mean, because monthly, yearly report doesn't specifically say a monthly financial report. If we're gonna do that, this might be as good a time as any just to plug that in based on Linda's comments. But since Linda's here, Linda, what do you think?
That's a good recommendation.
Okay,
One more
ma'am,
time.
Yes, I think that's a good recommendation.
okay. Ma'am,
She thinks that's a good
Going back
recommendation.
to the membership.
can we
As my
finish this point first and then we'll do that?
Okay,
Mr. Chair, PHS, you want to plug that in where you deem appropriate?
That's fine.
Okay, all right, now Sharon.
on the membership. As a senior, I can go to any senior center. But what determines where I can vote? Is it, I can vote at all of them? Or is it my residency? And is that within the bylaws of their senior centers?
You vote where your zip code.
So if you have a large crowd and you have half of them, they are dividing who's voting by the residency for the new board of directors? Or is that spelled in their bylaws?
Yes, that information is in the bylaws as to
Okay, I
who's
just wanted-
eligible to vote. Just to give you a conversation that I just had with one of the centers is, yes, they collect addresses, they look at them, and they make sure
They
that.
determine
Yep.
that they're the ones residing in that location.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, I wasn't sure, so.
Yeah, we don't want to get into the voting auditing of their activities.
No, but I was just curious, because if I can go to all of them, and how are they going to determine, are they going to
By your address.
separate us? All right, thank you.
Ma'am,
And that's what I know, that you can go to any center, but you can't be a director on any center board. It's where you live that you can be the director and vote for those policies and things that they're doing.
But that's in there.
And it's in the law, not in the law, but it's in the
well, we
article.
mandated that as one of the items to be in the bylaws.
Okay.
Yeah,
And,
Yeah.
and let me add to that real quick, is the transportation is the same way. You have to go
Yeah.
to the center that you're assigned if you're using any transportation.
That's true. To go to the doctor or something.
So it's not vote early and often, just one time. Any other questions, comments?
This is good stuff.
We
If I
have-
can just add that, so you're
Yeah.
gonna see this again in December, so then we're gonna tweak the timeline a little bit. So once you approve your budget in November, I have a number for what we estimate that the senior centers are gonna get. So in December, the next set of terms of appropriation for what's collected in 25 to be distributed in 26, that will actually happen before the distributions start and that kind of thing. So that, you'll see this again in December for the following year.
Okay, and Bob, you're gonna take artistic license and add that to paragraph 18.
I'll have my able assistant But I also want to compliment Annette and Linda and the work they've done on this, as well as the centers. I mean, none of these changes are, are pointing fingers at anybody. We just think that they're doing marvelous work. And we want to make sure that we're representing the taxpayers of Bering County well.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
we're very proud of the organizations.
Indeed. Okay, let's quickly, well, before we go to public comments, did you have something you wanted to mention to us?
I do. So to the board, tomorrow marks an important day in the finance department. You all know the importance of financial reporting, which I think we just discussed at length. The team that works upstairs is going to be saying goodbye to someone that's been a vital member of that team. So to my right, Steph, and her final day with the county is tomorrow afternoon. And this is one that, if you don't know Deb, you don't know someone that is just eternally upbeat and is just absolutely wonderful to work with. So to Debbie, I say to you, thank you for all of your years of work. And to the board, I say, if you would be so kind as to wish her the very best as she pursues retirement, it would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you so much. We are very sad to go, but it's time anyway. It's been wonderful, just wonderful here. I've loved it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I couldn't cry to me. I gotta get up there and walk and walk and walk, so, and exercise.
Deb, were you hired by Mike Henry or by Bill
Mike
Wolf?
Henry was here just a very short
That's
time,
what
but I was hired by Bev Rice over in childcare is where I started.
Okay,
And then I came over here just before Munis
Oh,
started
okay.
and everything. So I've been here most of the over 23 years
good
on
timing.
this side.
then,
So
yeah.
yeah, it has been a complete pleasure and I've been very proud to work for the county and all of
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Deb.
Okay, we need to do public comments and then head to committees. So let's, we'll go to public comments. We have, as noted earlier, a couple of senior center directors. Did either of you wish to share anything?
Sure, I just want to thank the county for the support. I want to thank the county for the support in the form of the millage. But I think just to reiterate, all of the board members that I can speak to our center are very serious about their charge. So people really want to keep the senior centers active and vital, and they really like to follow whatever the requirements are. So I
For
think.
the benefit of the clerk who keeps the minutes, name and town.
Oh, Adam Burke from the Buchanan Area Senior Center. I live in Buchanan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. No, okay. Anyone else wish to be heard? All right, we'll break for committees and come back here in an hour and 5 minutes.